This episode is kind of special. We are going to be talking about the coolest things of 2024. Now, caveat, mine is very marketing focused. I think it'll be relevant to folks who listen to the podcast that work at ProcureTech brands that are involved on the revenue side, go-to-market side, or marketing side. But I wanted to just throw that out there. FYI, you'll hear some marketing lingo and marketing talk from my list.
And mine is very Eloise focused, so take that for what it's worth.
And just call out for those who have not yet subscribed. We are on all the major podcast channels. Please hit the subscribe button on your favorite channel. We are really focused on getting our subscribers up as we go into 2025. So Dr. Eloise, let's have you kick us off with your, we both prepared lists of the coolest things, so we're going to kind of bounce back and forth. So let's start with yours.
So my number 5 is the Waymo Robo-Taxi. I think I've used this in many of my presentations this year, certainly after April. And big credit and shout out goes to Stan and Alex, the co-founders of LevelPath, who took me on my first Waymo. And for those that are not familiar, Waymos are robo-taxis that work just like Lyft and Uber here in San Francisco, and they're in a few other cities now. And it's just truly a remarkable experience. And so when we talk about AI being overhyped, and it is absolutely overhyped, on one hand, that is true. But on the other hand, there is some really cool and legitimate AI uses. And the robo-taxis or the Waymos are just the coolest thing. And you have to come and try these things out. They're just absolutely, utterly amazing. And it's the only way to travel around the city unless you're walking or taking public transit.
So I have not yet been in one. When I was in Phoenix, probably, when was I there? 2-3 months ago. They were everywhere downtown. I'm assuming that's one of their major hubs. They're all white. They're very identifiable. They were absolutely everywhere. And then a couple weeks later, I was in Southern California for my girlfriend's 50th birthday. And Friday night, she hosted a gathering at her house. And one of the ladies ordered a Waymo, and it came and picked her up. So most of us had not been in one before. So we all kind of went outside and saw the experience. What I heard is that it's not very good on freeways yet.
Yeah.
Is that it? Did you have that same experience? It sounds like it's much more built out for like city street driving.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. So I only took it around town in San Francisco. And so from like the Mission, for those of you familiar with San Francisco, from like the Mission District all the way down to the Embarcadero, it was cheaper than Lyft and Uber, especially since there's no tip necessary. And it was very pleasurable. I have not taken it on the freeways yet. And I figure the way I look at it is if Waymo can figure out downtown San Francisco, then it's going to have no problem with bigger cities like Phoenix or Vegas or LA.
Okay. Yeah, that's also on my list. I use Uber and Lyft quite a bit. I don't like driving, so whenever I travel, I don't want to drive to the airport. I don't want to park. When I'm traveling to other cities, I don't want to drive. So I definitely am someone who's okay being an early adopter. I'm not overly worried about getting into a serious accident. So I will report back once I take my first ride.
Okay. So maybe for homework over the holiday season, you and I can go over to the city, get coffee or tea, and take a Waymo somewhere.
That would be, we could record from the Waymo because we don't have to drive or worry about it, right? So we could do a little mini episode. I love that idea.
All right. Sold.
So my number 5, I've mentioned this on the pod throughout the year. You'll see my list is not only marketing bent, but kind of productivity bent as well. I'm trying to get better with managing my schedule and managing my time. So my number 5 is an application called Fathom, which I installed on my computer, and it is an AI note taker. And it has been an absolute lifesaver for me throughout the entire year. It records all my calls. It prepares transcripts. It prepares my highlights and summarizes my meetings so I can focus on the conversation and not have to worry about pulling up something on a monitor, taking notes. And that's for me, I have a hard time if I have to be taking notes and interviewing someone or having a conversation. It's a little bit tough for my productivity and my focus. So huge game changer. My team now kind of knows that all calls are recorded for the most part. I mean, if there is a very sensitive call, I'll ask ahead of time, are you comfortable with this being recorded? If not, I'll shut it off. But for the most part, it's always running. And my team now knows that. And I'll get pinged and be like, oh, that meeting from Tuesday, can you send me the transcript? Or, oh, that meeting from Thursday, I actually missed something. Can you send me the recording? So very simple, very basic. I'm actually on the free version, so I don't even pay anything for Fathom, but it just automatically is connected to my Zoom, records my calls, and takes all my notes for me. So if you are looking to improve productivity and need to do a better job of taking notes, highly recommend checking out their platform.
Okay, I have not checked them out, although to be fair, I don't attend a lot of meetings, at least that require note taking. I do a lot of like one-on-ones and sort of private discussions, but or I'm presenting. However, I will look at that, or certainly in 2025, productivity tools is going to be at the top of my list. So good call on that one.
Yep. All right, you're number 4.
Number 4. Okay, so this may sound self-serving, and especially so early in our top 5 list, but my number 4 is this dual source discourse. And really, this is not about me, but this is me giving you kudos and a gigantic thank you from me for recommending and sticking with the idea and convincing me to eventually do this. Creating this podcast has been one of the highlights of certainly my career even, but definitely this year. And I just absolutely love what we've done. We're going to, I think, end up with 32 episodes this year, which is staggering considering we didn't start till April, I think. And so I just want to say thank you to you for everything you've done to bring this to bear, because this has been so cool of an experience and just very educative and informative, and especially for just collecting thoughts and sort of like your productivity one. It keeps a record of these various topics that we can go back to the transcript. So thank you.
I thank you and kudos to you as well. It's a big time commitment. And for folks that are listening that are thinking about launching some sort of podcast or some sort of video content, maybe let's share a couple tips as we're on your number 4. So our podcast, I would say, is very non-traditional. We just kind of talk about whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
So we're probably not the most on focus, on track. Where there's a lot of other procurement podcasts that are super focused on something like digital transformation or super focused on AI. And when you're going to listen to an episode, you kind of have a sense about what the content or what the theme. So good or bad, that's just kind of how we've run the podcast this year based on conversations, experiences, feedback we've had on LinkedIn. So we've just kind of I would just call us a little bit random in all the different things that we've discussed. The other thing is we both do this more as a hobby. We both have full-time jobs. And so we are not spending hours and hours promoting and marketing our podcast. We don't have a website. We don't have an email marketing program. So one of the things to think about is if you are going to do a podcast, what is your end goal and what do you want to get out of it? Is it more of a hobby? Like Dr. Eloise and I love hanging out and chatting. So we figured we did that anyway. We might as well convert it into, content that we can save and keep. But if you are in marketing or or on a revenue team, you have targets and goals that you need to meet. And if you're going to do a podcast, you need to have a way to market it and track the ROI and metrics. So just want to throw that out there as well, that ours is a little bit different focus. And created with a little bit different intention.
But you never know where it'll end up. And where I thought this might go, I thought this would be more traditional, and just it's naturally gone to these very random, interesting topics. And I love that we talk about things that just kind of like we experience, like travel tips or meeting strangers, just topics that wouldn't normally get covered. So
Yeah.
also, I think that makes it a little more accessible to folks outside of procurement.
Yeah. And if you are going to do the podcast, it's also important to have I would say, a consistent schedule and frequency.
Yep.
We have somehow committed to almost every single week releasing a new episode on Wednesday morning, but it is important to have consistency so your audience knows what to expect. So if you can only commit to 2 a month, then do it, but make sure you have consistency about the day and time and when you're releasing. Don't do 10 and then go dark for 2 months. So that's really important to stay on track. And think about, if you listen to a podcast, what you would think if all of a sudden an episode didn't come out for 3 weeks, right? You'd lose interest and move on to something else. And it's hard to get people back.
Yeah. Okay. You're number 4.
Number 4. So this is more general. And this one is not as marketing focused. It's the rise of low-code platforms.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that I've just been really, really excited about. And I've seen more of it in procurement. Now in my new world in the IT space, I'm also seeing this become really, really important and almost table stakes now for platforms to be successful. And what I think is so powerful about these low-code, no-code platforms, I'll throw in no-code into the mix.
Got to include no-code.
Yeah. It allows an organization to quickly adopt a new software or new platform without having to hire what I call an army of consultants. And for those of you who have done large software implementations like an Oracle, like an SAP, you often have to hire outside experts or hire very expensive in-house resources to even be able to get it set up and implement it. With the low code, no code, it allows a very, very quick go-to-market, quick change management, and it just makes it so much easier and more cost-effective than buying something where it's going to take 10, 12, 18, 3, 5 years, but also the cost of having to hire those people. So I'm just so excited about it. I think it's the future. And I think we're going to see this become more and more table stakes for any procure tech platform or software that is available in the market.
And I love this one. And I'm a big no code, low code person. And I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that the big orchestration platforms are built on this concept. So that's part of one of the many reasons why I love that whole market. So,
yeah. And I mean, it's almost, I call it like the grandparent or the parent rule. Could my mom, who is retired, who doesn't use computers very much, go in and figure something out? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, to me, that is low code, no code. Yeah. If someone takes a look at it and you're going to need, to hire a contractor and help 6, 10, 12 months, that is not low code, no code. And your marketing and messaging should not reflect that if it's truly not.
Yeah.
All right. You're number 3.
Number 3. Okay. My number 3, I'm going to call it the magic spend cube or the one-click spend cube. Now, just so I have to set some context here. So Kearney has, so when it comes to evaluating procure tech, I am fiercely independent. I get poked and prodded from everybody you can imagine, whether it's founders or VCs or my colleagues here at Kearney. And of course, over the last decade, Kearney has built its own custom procurement apps or procure tech apps for Kearney. So Kearney building custom solutions for us to use on our on our client engagements, which is great.
Meaning Kearney built software that you as the consultants use.
Yes, correct. Although not me, because I don't work that hard. But essentially, yeah, so Carney builds it for Carney. Now, of course, there's always a question of, hey, how do we get this cool tech on the spider map? And you will notice no Carney logo, no Carney Procure Tech has made it onto the spider map. And that, quite frankly, I don't think that'll ever happen because, again, Carney stuff is for Carney, not for the market. Although I'm sure somebody at Carney will disagree with that. However, I'm at best intransigent, but probably many people around here think that I'm a jerk. But I do keep this very clear separation. However, this year I did see something cool developed by Carney. A fellow partner, Vijay Kasi, who is a partner, and he and his team built what is in essence the magic spend cube, and it is exactly like you would imagine. You just take a CSV file or whatever file and you just toss it in, and it actually goes through, classifies, harmonizes the data, classifies it, pulls in data from, I think it's Barreau, but one of the insight aggregators. It does a risk analysis and it does a carbon cube, all with me touching nothing. There was one button. It says generate results, and all that stuff happens. Now, I do want to say that Cievo, Spend HQ, Suplari, Roslyn, like those are enterprise spend visibility apps. But I just want to flag that, and what makes this cool for me is just how advanced the technology is, that you can just toss a CSV file into this. I'm going to just call it the magic button, and out comes a fully vetted.
So do you, if let's say I had an Excel spreadsheet of marketing data, would I give it an instruction and I would say, here's what I want you to do with this data?
No,
I would literally just drop in the file with no direction.
No direction. So there is a format there. I don't want to oversell it. There is sort of your Excel file can't be like all mangled, but as long as it's a clear Excel file, you just dump it in.
So you dump it in, and then it's going to do its thing, and then come back to the read out of the data.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it's that simple, which again, what I'm looking for is how simple can it be and how accessible can it be? And that's what really blows me away about this. Like I don't have to give it instruction. And obviously there are more nuances to it and you can do more, which is why you probably want to go with an enterprise solution. But we have been struggling with and talking about spend cubes for my entire career, 25 years. And I think it was like 5, 10, 15 years ago, I started talking about we needed this algorithmic spend cube where we just toss data in, have it come out. And I've been watching the progress year after year after year and just kind of like rolling my eyes and like, OMG, are we ever going to get there? But I didn't even know this was built. And then Vijay showed it to me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. That's what I've been talking about for a decade. So
I would be curious how the whole privacy piece is managed, because I know enterprise organizations in particular are very cautious about using systems to dump data into, because they don't want it getting out on like the mass market or out into the world.
And this is also a little bit of a nuance because this is not for mass consumption. We're not selling this as a tool. And I imagine, and by the way, all the enterprise providers of this type of technology, I assume have something similar. And if they don't, then the bar's just been raised. I don't spend a lot of time with the spend analytics market, as most people know, because I have this belief that we should have solved that 25 years ago. So I'm cranky whenever somebody shows me one of those solutions. But it's a fair point, and any use of that data within Carney would have been legally protected and all the other protections, but also remembering that we're not selling it, so that actually has an implicit level of protection there and data privacy.
Mm-hmm. All right, my number 3 is a kind of a new term, and it's called conversational marketing. And I learned about this through someone named Natasha Willis. You can find her on Instagram or many of the other social channels. And she's really coined this phrase this year. And it's around monetizing your content with direct message funnels.
Mm.
So it's this new rise of something I call it chat marketing. And there are a few platforms out there now that have built solutions for this. Instagram is probably the biggest place that I've seen this being used. WhatsApp is also another, Facebook, but probably Instagram is the most. But it's called ManyChat. And they are probably one of the most well-known in this space. But again, there's others out there. And what they do is their software allows you to create automated messaging that is very personalized, that allows your consumer to get information instantly versus having to wait. So let's say, for example, that I was selling water bottles and I had an Instagram account and I had a really active social platform, and people in the comments were engaging and messaging, and somebody had a question or, hey, where can I buy that? What you do, an example would be you say, post this in the comments or DM me this word. So let's say the word was water bottle. Whenever somebody posts that in the comments or post it in a message, your automated sequence automatically triggers and has all the information without you ever having to touch it. And these can be highly, highly personalized. So I could have mine be kind of funny and quirky and sound like me. And what it does is, and you're not being a fraud, you're not pretending like it's not automation, but what you're doing is you're giving somebody what they want instantly versus them having to wait a day, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours when all they want is right now. They just want that piece of information. In B2B, great example would be, let's say there's a new law or regulation coming out and you have a one pager explaining what it means and what companies need to do to be compliant. You could create a one pager with this DM chat message. And then whenever somebody posts something, you automatically send them a couple messages and then they get a downloadable document. So I just think this is really cool and innovative. And I've seen a lot of people embrace this on Instagram and do it very well. Natasha Willis has now built her entire business around this concept of conversational marketing and building highly targeted automations for brands. Her clients have done over $70 million in sales and DMs.
Wow.
Because of the ability to get people the information almost instantly with no breakdown or the manual touch or the manual delay. So something that's, I think, really innovative and unique, and I'm going to follow this closely. I have not personally built out my own automation yet. I think it's more common in the B2C space, but I think this could be a really cool thing for a ProcureTech brand to try.
Yeah, I love this in so many ways. And I wonder, as you said, it's automation right now, but I wonder over time as these bots become more intelligent and move to become more agent-based, you could actually conceivably see a much more sophisticated interaction over time. Because as you said, the quirky bit of Sarah, I could imagine this sort of Sarah sort of passing off like with your, as you say, quirkiness to keep the
and
conversation going.
You can have animations, you can have GIFs, you could have videos, you could have pre-recorded things that are automatically popping into DM as part of your automation. But again, just imagine for a B2B brand, if you have some really valuable piece of content and you want to get it to people quickly, you want to encourage engagement and conversation, and then boom, you have something that they want and need. I've also seen companies embracing this for building newsletters. and getting emails much, much faster by going back and forth in the DM and collecting the emails versus trying to use Zoom Info and Apollo and some of those more legacy data collection systems. So something to just check out and think about. And if anyone who's listening has tried this or does do some sort of chat marketing, would love to hear more about it and hear your story.
Awesome. Okay, my number 2. We're already down to the 2s. All right, my number 2 is DPW New York. Now, everybody knows I love DPW, all things DPW. I love, 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 love DPW Amsterdam. I'm well on record about that. However, this year DPW came to the US and much heralded and very excited, a lot of excitement about it. And they're going to come back next year. I think it's in June. But to me, these conferences are the pinnacle of business conferences. Like, it doesn't get better than this, not just for procurement, but just in general for business conferences. And so, because it's big enough to be impactful, but small enough to be intimate that you can network effectively, as we've talked ad nauseum. And we'll continue talking in the new year because we have another podcast coming up on that. However, the event here in New York was 100 people. It was invite only. It was this is my sort of view on it. It was sort of a trial run of what it might look like here in the U.S. And so it was everything that would be expected. And I'll have a video on my channel about that as we close out the year here. But what really blew me away, and the first time I saw this, is I was on my way to New York for DPW, and I was plunking around on the internet, and I went to LinkedIn, and I saw a post from Matthias, and it was the DPW team in Times Square, and behind them, up on one of the gigantic electronic billboards, was my picture, and I was like, what? And like, almost like I thought it may have been AI generated, but actually what the DPW team did, Herman and Kathy and Matthias and everybody else, is they rented a electronic billboard and did a loop of the highlights from DPW Amsterdam 2023. And of course, there was a picture of me in that loop, and there was a few pictures taken, but the one that Matthias posted was me. I mean, blew me away. They were joking it blew their marketing budget away too. But I just thought this was just so stellar of an idea. Like, who would think about that for a procurement conference, or any conference for that matter, to really bring procurement? Like, that's literally mainstream. And I mean, I landed, got into the city, and I went right to Times Square to see it. And so anyway, it just made me proud to be part of procurement and to see it there. And I guess I would say a thank you to the DPW team for doing that, because it not just for me, but for the profession. I think it's great to just really publicize that, maybe not everybody understands or appreciates it, but when you're up there in Times Square, that means something.
So I have not attended a DPW event, US or Amsterdam. I was scheduled to go, and then COVID hit, and that all went to crap. So, and I was potentially attending last year, and something came up. But anyway, what I think about, so I can't personally speak to their events because I've not been, but I will say, I think they have figured out how to create exceptional experiences. Mm-hmm. Things that you're not going to see anywhere else, things that you're not going to see at another procurement conference or another event. And so what I think about when you said that on this list is that, what can folks do in procurement to do something unique and innovative that is not being done anywhere else, that's bringing people together in a unique and fun way, that those folks are then going to talk about and market for years and years after.
Yeah, I mean, that picture that Matthias posted is going in my annual review. I mean, that's the kind of impact and granted, I'm just one person, but I mean, look at the excitement and how much that has stuck with me throughout the year. And you're right. They just have this great way of grabbing people's attention and making these experiential moments that people can hang on to.
I liken that to companies that have leaned in and done well with influencer marketing.
Yeah.
They're getting folks to be raving fans and marketing and promoting them without them having to do anything. They're not paying you. They're not paying other folks. And so they have figured out by creating such a unique experience, other people are going to market and promote their offerings and their events.
Yeah, and I like that. I'm a raving fan because I don't get, there's no kickbacks. I don't take any money from them or anything. It's just this like pure excitement for the experience. And it's, I mean, not to rehash the past, but I mean, it is so great as an American and to go over and experience this great conference in Amsterdam, in another country. But even here in New York, I was really impressed with how they created curated a very intimate but fantastic experience.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what their expansion in the US looks like next year, meaning in 2025, how they're going to embrace not only a 1 or 2 day summit, but some more regional kind of focused events throughout the year.
Absolutely. All right. Number two,
right,
you're number two.
Number two is going back to productivity again. So there is something that my team has adopted. It's called Writer. It's writer.com. Shout out to Shannon on our team who actually implemented this and has used this at a previous company. But it is now what we are using to help our team with content creation. And instead of staring at a blank screen and thinking about what the heck am I going to write about? I don't know anything about this topic. I'm tired. I'm not in the mood. It gives you an incredible resource to help get the ideas started. Now, I am not saying when you use a platform like this that you just blindly cut and paste and use that as the end result, but it's a great starting point to put in a topic or idea or some sort of example, and then have Writer go and generate content. And you can train the platform to know your brand values, your brand guidelines, words you want to use, what you don't want to use. So it really, really kind of gets to know your brand voice, your value. It pulls in articles, things from your website. So it's really, really almost like having a content writer on your team to support all the efforts that you're doing from a content perspective. And so we have embraced it. We are all using it. So we're feeding it and putting in as much information as possible so it gets to know us. And it's just been an incredible time saver in helping us turn around content ideas and content at a much quicker pace. Now, the platform does many other things as well. They call themselves a way to build AI apps and workflows. So there's much more that Writer does. We are not currently using nearly all that it has to offer. We're really focused on the content creation piece, but I highly, highly recommend checking it out if you're looking for a way to turn things around faster, set guidelines, some sort of guardrails. And again, I know there's a lot of other players in this space, but very, very impressed. And I think it's a huge kind of table stakes now. If you're going to be in marketing or on the revenue side or go to market side, you've got to be able to quickly turn around content.
All right, so I'll make 2 comments on this. One simple and one more professorial. When I do my LinkedIn post, especially for this, for each week, I will sometimes use the link. I'll write what I want and then use the LinkedIn generator to reshape the language. And I found that to be helpful. And so even if it's not a blank canvas, these tools are really powerful, and I like what it does. And usually I massage it. Well, I always massage it, but yes, it's very impactful. And so I love just like a standalone tool that I like that a lot. Now, the other bit I would say, and I teach part-time or periodically a grad level class, and a lot of the struggle for the students is that blank, like I've got to write this essay about this topic, and I am as a professor, I am a stickler on outlines. I want to see the outline, because the outline anchors the whole thing. And I've noticed in working with ChatGPT and the other sort of these types of AI solutions for writing, that it helps the thinking process. So it's not so much writing like writing sentences, but actually it's the thought process of what you have to enter into the prompt that is actually a mini outline, or it's helping the logic to frame it out. So I think to sort of summarize that or boil that down, I think what it's doing is it's helping to micro outline for the humans, even though the output is not like that.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a whole world now around prompting.
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
I've actually heard of companies hiring people where part of or most of their job is actually managing all the prompting that goes in the AI tools to manage the output across many, many business units. So there's a whole world now in learning how to do that, and that's going to become a much more important skill.
But think about it, like if you have to, yeah, and by the way, totally agree with that. I mean, that is, which is wild to think about, because that job didn't exist 2 years ago. But just thinking about, like if you as the human have to say, all right, what is it? You are creating a LinkedIn campaign for whatever, you're already starting to logically arrange the building blocks of what you want the tool to write for you. And I would argue that that's outlining what you want. Now, again, probably a mini outline, but I think that's a really important piece in the writing process.
Yeah, and also if you're in marketing, you have something called an integrated campaign where there's many different components. You've got paid ads, you've got LinkedIn, you've got email, you've got newsletter. So you may have a theme of content for the quarter, and you need to build out many different types of content with the same message. And so another great way to leverage something like Writer is to have your core foundation and then have it help you create all the different mini subversions of the content that is needed across all those different channels.
Awesome.
Alrighty, you're number one.
I am so excited about this one. So my number one comes with a 2025 prediction. So first off, I have to say my bold lock it in prediction for 2025 is going to be that so my prediction is that in 2025, the most overused buzzword is going to be agentic workforce. And so my very, very simple definition, and I keep asking people their definition, so it's everybody has something different, but I'm going to use the simple definition of creating a set of custom agents that are intelligent, that work on behalf of us as individuals or groups. And so I'm already seeing this, and these quote unquote LinkedIn experts publishing stuff. If you're talking to VCs, there's a lot of buzz around agentic workforce. So I think this is going to be a just wild topic in 2025. By the way, I'm getting automated spams in my LinkedIn about this. So just to bring a couple of things together. All right. With that preamble said, the absolute coolest thing I saw in 2024 were 3 startups that have built agentic workforces for procurement. So built around procurement's custom processes, ways of working, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not a agentic workforce generic platform that you have to customize to procurement. These are agents that are built around procurement for procurement. And It's absolutely stunning. So the three companies that I saw, there may be more, but the three that I saw were Sligo, Diderot, and Rivio. Now, all of them are very new, very brand new, and even their agents are relatively modest, if we're honest. However, like Sligo's one person, Rivio is two people, and Diderot is, I think, 7 people. But all of these companies are relatively brand new, as in within the last year or so that they've been founded. And what I see today is fantastic. However, if you just extrapolate out 1 year, what these folks have done, and others will do it too, is just it boggles the mind, because all of a sudden we're going to have a procurement workforce in a box to be deployed.
So let me make sure I understand. So I'm the VP of procurement. Let's
Yep.
start on the direct side. And I have, I don't know, a team of 20, 25 folks. I would, in theory, buy an agent and have somebody on my team responsible for working with and managing that agent. So I would be, quote, buying an employee at a tenth of the cost.
Correct. And you might over time. So I'm sort of predicting or imagining that not only would you do that, so you could kind of go a couple different directions. You could buy a whole series of these agents and change or reduce your workforce accordingly. Or I would even argue that each individual, let's say you have 25 people, each individual person might have many agents themselves running on their behalf. So every person becomes a manager, but a manager of agents versus a manager of people. And so you can, without increasing headcount, and actually you could probably reduce it depending on what the mix is, you could get more coverage, more expansive capability for a fraction.
Well, and there's that they don't get sick, they don't take holidays, so they're running 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the power we have to wrap our heads around. And I'm excited to wrap my head around it. And I'm old, so I've got work to do. But it's truly phenomenal.
Do the 3 that you mentioned, do they also work on the direct side when you say procurement focus, or is it primarily indirect that you've seen?
I without putting words in their mouth, what I've seen is mostly indirect-ish, and sort of back to our episode last week. I think there's just, it'll take more sophistication and nuance to bring agents into directs. However, I do think agents will play a great role in directs because it's structured enough that you'll be able to stick these folks in.
It's very tactical, and even the predictability piece giving you the insights to be prepared before something happens.
Yeah. All right. So now I just want to add one more bit to this, because it's easy to get into, and this wouldn't have been these 3 wouldn't have been the coolest thing, but actually it went one step further for me. So Matt, the founder of Sligo, he did something cheeky. I didn't ask him to do this. He did it. He did it on his own. He didn't even ask permission. He just did it. But he wanted to prove to me that this is real. I didn't ask him to do this, but he was, he decided to do this on his own volition. He took all of my writing, my videos, and anything I had public, and he grabbed it all and trained an agent on it and created a virtual agent or a virtual Eloise agent. And so this is a full-on legitimate agent that can respond as me, and it blows me away. And in fact, I'll just read you one, because I did a prompt right before this because I was recording a video, and I asked virtual Eloise, what does history tell us about running modern supply chains? And the first sentence is just so funny. It says, "Darling, if you think supply chain woes are a 21st century invention, you clearly haven't been paying attention in history class."
It's got some of your personality built into it already.
Oh my God, it's got my sass and It has come, and then, the next sentence is, we've been grappling with supply chain challenges since the days of chariots and caravans. I mean, that is so quintessential. I don't know, that, like, it's certainly my sass, but it just has my cadence and my sort of je ne sais quoi.
So is this like a chat function that you installed on your computer?
Well, actually, it's not even, it's just, so what Matt did was clever, is he built it on the Google AI platform. And although it's not unique to Google, I suppose it could be on the other ones. So I just log in with my Google account, and I can start chatting with this agent. And I use that example. I mean, obviously I'm flattered because it's a virtual me. But I love that it's real, and we don't have to talk about what could be, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I can actually go type this like I did and get an answer, and it makes me think. And I was laughing so hard, my wife came in. She's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I explained it to her, and
You're
she was
like,
blown away.
here's your virtual wife.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this is, again, this is early days still, right? And there's you could poke a lot of holes in this, and I could certainly, but when I think about, like, what is cool and exciting, I mean, this was just, I mean, I'm still blown away. And every time I interact with virtual LOEs, I just come away just like, good Lord, what was that? I mean, it's just so impressive. And so, and I'd also think, just, I know I'm rambling on here, but I'm just so excited about it. It does give you an idea of where the professional services and white collar jobs can go. And when we were just talking about a team of 25, well, and some of those could go away or become more productive. You can start to see it with this virtual LOEs.
I'm really I'd be curious to follow the journey if there's some large enterprises that are in the works of adopting this, like where they started, and then like 3 months in, 6 months in, kind of hearing the story around how it's impacting their businesses.
Yeah, I can say that I know one of these three. All of these three have some measure of clients. One of them is talking to a very, very, very big enterprise and sort of working with them. And I had made the introduction, and the person, one of the main person on the client side is a technology person. He sent me a note and said, seeing this just cracked his head open. Like, he just absolutely. So I think maybe I'll bring him on to an episode maybe next year, or somehow we'll convey that information as they progress next year.
I would, such an interesting case study to talk about.
So anyway, I just, as you could tell, like, my energy level went up like 15% just getting to this one, because it's just like, I am blown away by it as an old person.
So does virtual LOEs have a name or character yet? Have we gotten to that step?
Well, it is virtual LOEs is the is the name. There is an icon, but this is something I intend to do, but haven't done yet. Is you can go and get your head 3D modeled, or pictures taken, so that then it can auto generate your likeness and have it talk back. So you could actually talk to a virtual version of me that is in a video format, that is basically, as it's generating the response, it's also generating it coming out of my likeness.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah, I know. So I'm like super excited to see where this goes.
All right. My number one is kind of a data geek one. And it is a system called Hockey Stack. All one word, capital H, capital S. And it's something my team has implemented. And I just think it's a huge, huge game changer for folks who work on the revenue side of the house. One of the challenges that folks struggle with, and I've struggled with throughout my career, is getting full visibility into all the touch points you have with a prospect throughout the entire funnel. So the second somebody interacts with you through the life cycle of the sales process and then beyond, whether it's close won, close lost, And you have systems like Salesforce, which kind of own the market, but they only give you a snapshot or piece of the data. So what Hockey Stack does is it integrates the data across every single channel and pulls it into a single pane of glass dashboard. So you can get really incredible insights and information around all the interactions that one prospect and one company has with your entire organization from their first interaction through the last. So it has dashboards that are built out. It's got the models and graphics that you can track and see the buyer journey. But this is a huge, huge game changer for folks on the revenue side because it gives us the insight and information to understand what is actually working in the sales and marketing process, how many interactions prospects have, which trigger certain actions or certain close rates, and what you should do more of and what you should do less of. And so sometimes marketers are kind of flying blind and going off minimal information or not seeing the full picture. And this allows folks to really, really get important insights so they can make better messaging decisions, better channel decisions, and better investment decisions. So we have rolled it out. We're still tweaking and modifying all of our integrations and data points, but so excited to have this for a full 12 months in 2025. And I think prediction that I'm going to make is I think we're going to see more revenue teams adopt this way of tracking and looking at data versus simply relying on a CRM as the single source of truth, having that as one of the data points and touch points, but not the only one.
I love this, and I'm going to, right after we're done, Google this and check it out, because I think actually what you described is better and more extensive than the traditional CRM. And this may be and maybe this is a question, but a post CRM solution, because the CRM doesn't capture everything I need in terms of every interaction, et cetera, et cetera. So I love this.
Yeah. And the CRM is one of the systems one of the data points, but you've got your website, you've got your paid, you've got your organic social, you've got review sites, right? All of those things are important interactions and important to track. So I would say CRM is one of the data points, should not be the only data point that an organization is looking at.
Yeah, and also I look at it as I do a lot of origination and sort of the big end of the sales funnel, and the CRM is not designed for big end of the sales funnel. So I like that this kind of
and this gets away from the finger pointing of, oh, that is sales attribution or that's marketing attribution. It's one go-to-market team. You're working towards one goal and one revenue target. So in my mind, a go-to-market engine that's well performing, sales and marketing touch every single prospect, right? Yeah. It's not just sales or just marketing. It's one team approach. And when you have that one team approach, you need to be able to accurately track all those touch points.
Yeah. All right. As we close out here, I also have 3 special mentions, and I'll just hit them quickly. One, this was just a cool use of technology, but it improved my life, shall we say, or at least on one day it did. I didn't know this, but you can order Starbucks in an airport. And oftentimes the Starbucks and coffee places at the airports can be just jam-packed full of people. So when I was coming back from Ireland, it was like an 8-hour flight. I landed at Newark. And as the plane's coming up to the gate, I pulled out my phone. I opened the app, the Starbucks app, and clicked it was in the international terminal that I wanted. I clicked order and placed my order. And so by the time I deplaned and walked over one gate to the Starbucks, my iced oat latte was there, and I just picked it up.
I wonder why they don't market that. Like, why
I don't know.
Why isn't there signage? I'm wondering if from a labor productivity, they don't want that. But you're right. It seems like the longest lines are often, well, the bathrooms are number one, but the coffee places, yeah. I don't drink coffee, but that's a very interesting observation as to why that's not more marketed.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I learned. Maybe there's a small sign, or maybe I saw it once, or maybe I overheard somebody ordering, because it never occurred to me. And I mean, I get coffee all the time, like every day. So, or lattes or whatever. And yeah, it seems like this greatest secret that I had no idea. And I mean, it was just the best. So. Okay, so my second special mention is Sirtius Procurement Forum, and that's what I call the destination conference. I did a whole video on this earlier in the year, right about the time I think we started this. I can't remember. I don't think we talked about it all extensively, but the idea that you bring everybody, in this case, Sirtius does it in Dubrovnik, Croatia, and you bring everybody, and it's a hike for those of us in the US to get there, but you go to this place, to a small town. Dubrovnik's a pretty small town, but it's gorgeous. And it's right on the water, and there's like 125 people. You're all staying in the same hotel. And it's very egalitarian, because with only 125 people, everybody gets a chance to present or be active.
Is it a customer conference?
It's customers, prospects, partners, the whole gamut. And what I love about it, I mean, I spent one afternoon with Lance Younger from ProcureTech. We walked all the walls, the city walls, which was just, I mean, stunning. But also, like, you go down for breakfast, and everybody in the breakfast area is associated with the conference. So you just get this random networking, and it's sort of like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's sort of like that family vacation where everybody's just like, everybody, and it just is a really great thing. So,
which I think that's an interesting comment, in that I think we've seen the rise of more firms doing their own events, whether it's a 1-day or 2-day conference, but bringing in customers, prospects, speakers is kind of here's what we're doing from a product perspective. But it's really powerful when your customers are talking about your product to your prospects, instead of you having to sell yourself. And I think we're going to see more and more of the ProcureTech firms hosting their own conferences or summits.
And I'm going to say this for the gazillionth time, has to be like if you're going to do that, destination conference, because doing it in some sad Marriott ballroom, and no offense to Marriott and no offense to sad old ballrooms, it's got to be something interesting and unique. Because if you have 15 of these quote unquote conferences, and you're just meeting at the random hotel ballroom, you're not going to get the pull. And Cievo did a conference in Chicago this year that I spoke at, and it was at this great co-working space that had this amazing vibe, and very much like a WeWork type place. It was a little more fancy than a WeWork, but it was a great vibe. So I mean, if you're a company and you're doing your own and you're not associated with the bigger organizations, you've got to make it really compelling.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Your third shout out.
My third shout out is BT Sourced did their Digital Native Week. And again, similar to the Sirtius one, but slightly different. This is a client doing their own digital week, where they bring in all of the digital partners they're working with. They brought in a few external people like myself to come talk. And I mean, I love this idea. And it was on the borderline to make my top 5, but it's hard to compare with a Waymo and like your picture in Times Square. But what BT Source has done is just, I mean, it's phenomenal that an individual company is doing this on their own. And they had, I mean, it was compelling content the whole week, and the pictures and the vibrancy. And the main takeaway that really sort of stuck with me is, in just this 1 week, the digital IQ, or the digital fluency that whole team, not just a couple of people, but the whole team walked away with, is pretty staggering. Because typically those sort of sessions are jammed into 1 or 2 days, and they did it all over the course of an entire week, and they did it in their offices. So it's not like I used to bring folks to San Francisco, and you get, it's great. You get people out of their cubicles, but like it's only 1 or 2 days, and by the time they get home, probably have forgotten a lot of the stuff. But when it's there in your space, constantly being reinforced, I think it's a very powerful thing. So I was absolutely, big shout out to Cyril, Dermot, and the rest of the BT Source team.
So takeaway there is think about timing. I think a lot of people think 1 to 2 days is the only option, and they kind of went rogue and did a 5-day program.
Yeah, amazing. So,
all righty. Well, I think that rounds out our coolest findings or coolest things of the year. Drop us a note in the comments if you have a cool finding or something that you learned or found, a product or something really innovative that you want to share. And we will be back next Wednesday morning.